So it's been many years now, but I think Sean was the second podcast ever that we did. I had this original grand plan that I would like interview a bunch of people because that's what I thought you were supposed to do until I realized I freaking hate interviewing people. I don't like talking about myself. And so I haven't done any interviews since maybe two or three over the years where somebody like, came by and visited. But Sean and I have been good friends for a number of years now. I think we actually met in 2014 at the
That's
first.
about when the 991 came out.
Yeah, and I think we knew of each other in the forum maybe 6 months or a year before that. Well, all the original Carrera S guys were waiting for their cars.
Yep.
But we always chat from time to time. And I called Sean the other day. I have some cockamamie scheme on some NFTs or something like that, and so I know that he can relate to my crazy. And so, Sean, do me a favor and update us on, or I guess rewind a little bit. What was your business? And we talked about, if you go back and listen to that episode, we talked about you sold your business and what that was like.
Yeah,
So
sure.
give us the 5 minute sort of bringing us up to speed because we have a lot more new people here than we did in the past.
Absolutely, you sure do. Yeah, so I have a background in statistics. I got into the world of data analytics. Was doing that for building credit scores and stuff like that over the years, and then in 2010, the data world was blowing up, and decided that it's stupid to do this for someone else when if you know what you're doing, you can do it for yourself. And so myself and my buddy Will Hakes started Link Analytics in 2010. That grew like crazy, and then we sold it to KPMG at the end of 2013. And then from there, I stayed at KPMG for a little while to integrate the businesses, and stepped away from it at the beginning of 2017 to just pursue other passions in life and enjoy what had been built, and maybe focus a little more on the fun side of things. I've always been into cars, and as things have progressed over the years, and gotten into some pretty cool stuff, and obviously that's how we got to know each other. And since then, moved to Chattanooga in 2018. I lived in Atlanta before that for about 20 years. Moved to Chattanooga. Actually, that was 2019. So we've been here 2.5 years, and have enjoyed that. Little bit slower pace of life, a little bit of simplification in terms of just the chaos of living in a big city. So I got two kids. One's 16, junior in high school, and my daughter's 13. She's an 8th grader. And yeah, we live up here in Chattanooga, and things are good.
Why there? You went to UT, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Knoxville. It was either Knoxville or Chattanooga. My wife's family lives in Chattanooga, just 10 minutes by water or by road. So it's pretty cool that we can hop in the boat and go over there. But yeah, definitely Chattanooga is a cool town because there's a lot going on here. They're called the Gig City. They're the first city to do gigabit internet in the United States. And it's been really interesting to see how gigabit internet changed this city. It brought a lot of high tech culture to the city, the small southern city. There's a lot here. There's a lot of outdoor stuff. There's rivers and rock climbing and mountain biking and four-wheeling and fishing and all the fun stuff that you can do outside. It's a beautiful city. So we were fortunate enough to find a place that we like here. And yeah.
How far is that from, let's say, the tail of the dragon that people know?
I can be on the Cherhola in under 2 hours. To get directly to the dragon, it's probably 2 hours and 45 minutes, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But typically my route would be here to the Cherhola, over the Cherhola into Robbinsville, and then over and do all that fun stuff at Fontana and the Dragon and all that. But I can make a day out of it, leave at 7 and be home at 7, and and hit every road, all the famous roads at least once. So
yeah. So let's rewind a bit. So we talked about, you were fresh off of, quote unquote, sort of semi-retirement, right? When we did the podcast the first time.
Yep.
Now that you've had, many years to reflect and have had several ventures along the way, was the was an exit from the business always part of the plan? Like, did you build the business to exit from it? How did that go about? And then what is that? What did it feel? What's it feel like now, having been removed for 5 or 6 years?
I think, we were building it because we knew the opportunity, and at that time they called it big data and analytics. We thought that if we built it right, someone was going to come knocking. And truthfully, KPMG came 3 or 4 times before finally it was like, all right, it would be dumb to say no to this, just in terms of how it can change the lives of ourselves and lives of our employees moving forward. So, it was always it was always something we had contemplated. We didn't expect for it to happen so quickly. It was 3 years, before, and then we sold it. In hindsight, seeing where the industry continued to go, and some of the and looking at some of the products we had and how good the technology was, would I sell it again to KPMG? Probably not. I think if we would have hung in there for 4 or 5 more years, even just 2 or 3, I think we would have had some pretty unique experiences, some incredible growth, probably brought on some really cool people, and who knows where it would have gone. I think, KPMG bought us because they thought it would be cool to buy an analytics company. I don't think they knew what they were getting. And so it was 3 years of frustration just trying to integrate the business into KPMG. Whether we did that successfully or not, all I know is we tried as hard as we could. So,
Mm-hmm. And so, no, doesn't sound like regret, more fantasizing about what could have been.
More wonder, I guess.
Yeah.
We were building something really cool. So, you always wonder, was that the right time? You know what? It could have been the perfect time for all I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, or it could have been the worst time ever. But of course, you can't think about it that way. It was a great exit, and it allowed me to step back and spend more time with the family. And those are all things that we had talked about. My wife and I had talked about is, the reason we're doing this is to eventually have the freedom to do what we want. So, but it's hard, when you have a business and you pour your heart and soul into it, and someone comes in and buys it and then tells you, hey, I'm running the business now, and this is how we're going to do it. And that is a very, very difficult thing to do for people who are highly passionate about what they do. So, it was a challenge, and it was 3 years of beating your head against the wall and making some things work, and trying to drive some tech and analytics culture into a 150-year-old accounting firm. So it was it was tough.
So let's relate that. Not everybody builds and sells a business, but let's talk about, now is one of those times where you could talk about a stock, you could talk about a car. The car world has, anybody who owns any car could probably get more now than they could have gotten than they paid for it, right? On pretty much any nice car. You could do it with a stock, with a cryptocurrency, with anything. What do you that question people, I think everybody asks, is when do you sell? When do you cash out? And then, in your case, what are you going to do? Like with a car, a little simpler way to answer, what are you going to drive? Let's say that was your only car. You sell it for 25 grand more. What are you going to do next? And so you sell the business. Then what did you do? What was your next thing that you did after that?
I think what you realize is you can't just stop, right? You can't just, your mind you'll get atrophy, right? Your brain will start to slow down, and you'll really start to, you say, gosh, I used to be able to figure stuff like this out. So you can't stop. But I think what you could do is start to do things that are healthier for your family life, for your personal relationships, and still keep your brain chugging along, right? So after I finished at KPMG, I decided I was going to run for elected, for city council, become an elected official. You learn them. I learned so much about how the world works being a politician for a few years. I'm not sure that's my long-term game, but it was fun. But then you start to, if you have this big exit allowed me to start to think about other businesses, and I've invested in some things, and I'm on some boards. And up here in Chattanooga, I was on a fishing trip with a fishing guide because I'm trying to learn the lake here. And we started talking about this guy. He's like, what I've always wanted to do was start a tackle shop. I've always wanted to have my own tackle shop, but I don't want it to be any tackle shop. I want you to walk in and realize that this is far more than just a place where you buy bait, right? He's like, I see glass cases and LED lights, and I immediately thought of you, right? And it was interesting to see the passion that he had in something entirely different than what you work on, but the theme is the same, right? Which is everyone on the lake knows this guy. Everyone knows he knows the lake, he knows how to fish. And so if there was a place where they could go, where they could sit down and talk to him and pick his brain on what's going on out there, and what's he using, and what are the patterns, and what's the water, where should I go, and what are the waypoints? And fishing in general, bass fishing is an incredibly complex thing. A lot of people think you just go to the end of the dock and throw a worm off, right? But for real tournament level bass fishermen, there are literally millions of different baits you could choose. There are millions of different patterns, presentations. You have electronics and extreme technology in these boats now. I mean, you can't believe what these things can do. And so, we kicked off this conversation of, gosh, it would be really cool to do that. Well, knowing me, I go home and I can't sleep that night because I'm thinking about this thing, right? And I just can't stop. And then I'm sitting by the fire with Chelsea, my wife, and I'm like, I know I can't stop doing this, but this is one that I think would be really interesting. And as supportive as she is, she went all in with me. So we started this business with these guys, and it's been a really neat adventure, just in terms of first helping them see how to really bring a business to life, right? That you cannot cut corners, and you can't accept that, yeah, you know what, that looks good enough over there. And it's like, guys, that is not the way it's going to be, right? It's, and if you walk into our tackle shop, you feel like you're in an Apple store, and people sense that, and people see that, and people feel the pride and everything that we've poured into it. We do a daily video at the end of the day where these guys talk about what worked and what didn't, brutally honest, the way that you are with a lot of stuff you work on. And people come in for the knowledge and the trust. And so it's when we started talking the other day, and then we had planned on doing a podcast a few weeks ago, I think that was one of the things I thought was really interesting and would probably resonate with people, is that this OG concept, right? The building credibility by showing that you use this stuff all the time, and narrowing down the millions of choices into stuff that people trust because they trust you and they trust that you use it, is something that can be applied to almost anything you do in life, at least in business, and so it, there is a lot of that type of thinking in what we've built, the way the place looks, the way the people come in, and they have this respect for Dylan and Greg and Tanner, the three guys that are operating this thing day to day and building the credibility, and it's going really, really well, and it's only starting. So it's it's been fun to see this little old building that we gutted and renovated, and now it's this, the place is doing really well, and I think. Of course, they start talking about how you could go national with this, and
sure,
yeah.
So how do you, like, if you were relating to this, like if you're listening to this, what do you think the percentage of people, like, this guy is a unique dude, right? He's a unique character. He has a unique passion for this thing, this one subculture, this one niche, that niche of bass fishing can consume, like with me in detailing, can consume your entire existence, right? He probably has some other little things on the side, but I mean, do you think that everybody could chase that one thing, or is this a unique thing? Is this something that that everyone could figure out what they're good at and chase. What are your thoughts? Yeah. I mean, seeing people and looking for opportunity. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's when I talk to people about starting businesses, the number one thing that stops people from starting businesses is fear, right? Is fear of risk. It's fear of the unknown. People get comfortable in their day-to-day lives. They get comfortable with their paycheck. They know they're going to get it next month and the next month, and they've got their medical insurance. And the thing that drives me craziest when people are talking about entrepreneurship and starting new businesses is, oh, you know what? If I had that one opportunity, I'd go do that too.
Hey, well, hold on 1 second. Michelle's sure. Freaking out here. That's the beauty of us not being live. We'll get her on the podcast and say, what are you interrupting me for?
Hey.
What's up? I'm doing a podcast. What's going on?
Well, sorry. So do you know it's just the little refrigerator they're bringing today?
Yeah, that's going outside.
Okay, I thought you thought they were bringing the big freezer. Okay.
No.
And because he didn't sound like he had any clue that he's taking the all that stuff back there. But I should tell him, yes, take it.
Yeah.
Okay, he made it out like, what? So I was just making sure it wasn't supposed to be returned when the big freezer.
No, there is no big freezer.
Oh.
Yeah. They're still
giving us a new freezer?
I don't know. We're still working on it.
Oh, okay.
All right, I gotta go. We're in the middle of this, like live. God dang it. It's killing me. All right. I thought there was some life or death. She called me 4 times.
She's trying to be helpful, man.
You know how that goes. But it's my fault. I order, 10 different things, and I'm like, you need to be there to get this stuff. She doesn't know what's going on. The guy doesn't know what's going on. So we were talking about it's uniqueness of people.
Yeah. And it's what drives me crazy is when people say, I know what I want to do. I just need that one opportunity to go do it. And that is just simply not how it works. It's very rare for you to be able to focus so hard on something, starting a new business while you're doing something else with it, to find that perfect opportunity and then just make a super smooth transition. I mean, I always reflect on when we finally started to do the analytics company. I mean, it was a conversation at the dinner table with Chelsea and I where, she said, if you think this is going to work, then let's go do it. And what happened was I quit my job and I had no insurance. So the family has no income and no insurance. And we have a 1 and a 3-year-old, or 1 and 4. And there's 6 months of, if something happens, we're screwed, and it motivates you to work harder. But I don't think that everyone has something they're interested in. What people struggle with is the ability to take that risk, right? To step off the ledge and say, I am leaving everything behind and I'm going to do this. It's very hard to do, especially for people who like to plan, and like to have certainty and all those things. And so I think that's what kind of separates people who are going to start businesses versus those that aren't is not, everyone is passionate about something. It is that some people are not comfortable not knowing where the next meal is going to come from while you're chasing something that may or may not work.
Having known you for a while, and then just kind of hearing this conversation, all of the things that you've done, do you feel like you ever copied, or was it original thought? Obviously data analytics is not an original thought, but did you say, I'm going to go make this company, or like with the tackle shop, I'm going to go do it like they do it? Or are you, I think I'm answering this is sort of rhetorical, but I think the theme of there's a combination of risk, taking the risk, plus some original thought, even if it's taking something that already exists and improving upon it. But it's not just, like one of the things that drives me crazy when you see like a Samsung Galaxy phone, it's just a copy of an iPhone. It's a crappy version of it. And they're missing the original thought. What do you think about that? What's your take on that? That's the sense I get from you. And what I can really relate to is that you see something, you chase it, and you're not just copying, you're creating something from scratch.
Yeah. it's one of the things that Will and I did after we sold the company is we looked at our first pro forma, right, which was our business plan. And, we thought, all right, here's how we're going to go get our money. And it was comically bad, right? It had absolutely no grounding in what we actually went out and did. And so we had some ideas. None of those ideas actually worked. But through that process, we met people who thought, you know what, these guys know what they're doing. We built credibility by saying we could or couldn't do certain things. And so the business looked drastically different in terms of, what we were focusing on and what we were building versus what we set out to do. It's just that you have to, I think it gives you comfort to have some sort of plan or some sort of idea what you're going to do. But in that world of, especially in the very beginning, you focus on, well, what is it that I can do that's actually going to generate some revenue so I can build some of these things I thought I was going to build, right? But it was comically different than what we ended up with in a good way. I think once we had sort of a base of clients and a base of ideas and some history on some good work we've done, things evolved pretty quickly.
Did you lead with, because you left your job, you didn't have insurance, you don't have an income, you have some savings is going to hold you over until X amount of time. Was there a lot of thought of leading with revenue? Like, if I do this, I can get this money, or it was, I think this is something great that I could create, and then I may get some money from it. I mean, what was your thought process? Like did the money drive the decision making in the early part of the business, or was it?
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to. I think if our first client was T-Mobile, and we were sitting in my basement one day, and we're like, what the hell are we going to do? We don't have any clients yet. We're 3 or 4 weeks into this thing. There's a conference out in Seattle. And we're like, it's the next day, and $1,500 out of our checking accounts to fly out there, and then we're sharing rooms and eating breakfast at Embassy Suites, and for free, and then we're taking a to-go breakfast for lunch, and then we're hitting the manager's reception in the afternoon, which was. But when we got out there, we happened to meet a guy who had just come from Germany, who was there to basically start to drive the analytical agenda of T-Mobile in the United States. And it just so happened that we were at the same conference as him, and he was excited to meet us. And you make your own luck. You put yourself in the right place, and certain things happen. But those conversations and what that guy had kind of set out to do and what he was thinking he might want to do here in the U.S. after just landing from Germany the day before kind of shaped our first few projects. And from there, we started to do things that were, I think, more in line with what we had set out to do. But, it's the chase of just any revenue in the beginning, just so you can call home and say, hey, I got some money, right? And you can take care of your kids and your family and take that pressure off. Because I mean, of all the stuff that goes on in business, as I'm sure the two things that matter the most are, one, taking care of your family, and two, as you get more employees, those are all families and many, many lives that are affected by the success or failure of your own business. And good business owners are motivated by that more than anything. Of course, that means money, right? For everyone, but yeah, I think you have to lead with that, and then and see where it takes you. Now, on the tackle shop, it's a totally different ballgame, because there's no pressure. We put a pretty good chunk of money in it, but it's not, if it crashed and burned, we still had this building and we still had the inventory, and we'd get out of it, right? And so the stakes were not as high for us. The stakes are probably higher for those guys because it's their first business. But then when you have that freedom where you have a little bit of cushion, I think you can have some more flexibility and some more latitude in terms of how you want to shape and what you want to say yes and no to. But that first one where you're just falling off the cliff and saying, hey, I can't believe I'm going to do this, man, it is a chase, and you take anything you can, at least for the first 6 months.
So what's it going to be like now? You are KPMG and the fisherman guys. So how, and you being type A, how does that work? You say, nope, this is going to go like this. How is that relationship? I'm sure you've had to work at that and that transition.
It is entirely we were extremely fortunate to have found each other, and meaning, Chelsea and I finding those guys and those guys finding us. We work really well together. There's a tackle shop and there's a lodge. The lodge is run by the wife of Dylan, who runs the tackle shop. And there is a lot of pressure, right? I mean, the investment just to get the place running was like $500,000. And, people look at you like you're crazy if you say, I'm spending $500,000 on a tackle shop,
Mm-hmm.
You walk in there now and you realize it went really quickly, but for them, the pressure is that, they have a chance to own this thing someday. And we mapped it out to say, hey, it's almost the reverse, right? So, they can, if they work hard and they hit certain revenue targets, they start to take over the business, and nothing would make me happier than eventually being a 25% owner and seeing those guys, just crushing it.
And you get to shop there and be a customer and frequent it and be a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. 2 miles from the house. And it's just what's been enlightening for us is it's allowed us to take what was locked in these guys' brains, and everyone who knows them knows that they have always had the potential to do this, but it's a perfect example of the fact that they had the passion, they had the knowledge, they had everything they needed except for the capital to build the business and someone to help them understand the components to it, right? You got to start the LLC and you got to get all these different insurances and you got to buy the building, and this is how you want to finance the building. And to stock that thing on opening day was $100,000 in tackle, and so where are you going to get that? It's not like you can secure that with anything. And so I think, to go back to your question, there are so many people that have that locked up in their brain, right? And given the right opportunity, it's all there, right? So you either take that risk the first time and do it yourself, or you find the right platform to bring that kind of vision to life. So
what's something in between? Have you failed? Did something you do fail? Have you failed at anything? I mean, any investment or business venture?
Yeah, I'll go back to that German guy that landed from our first client at T-Mobile, and after we sold the business and after he had been there a while, he decided that he wanted to start an organic pita restaurant in Memphis, Tennessee. Well, first it was Dallas and then it was Memphis, right? And in Dallas, it might have been successful, but it was one of those things where we felt almost obliged to place an investment into this organic pita restaurant because we thought we thought it would be successful. It was a massive failure. I mean, the business went to zero. And then what we found out was the guy decided to start another business that looked just like that one, with equipment that sure as heck looked just like the stuff that he had bought, that we had bought with, I think it was $500,000 or something like that investment. But I think overall capital he raised was like $2 million, and it just crashed and burned in like 18 months. And that just goes back to credibility and trust more than anything. We felt obliged. We made a bad decision because we were making a decision for the very wrong reasons. We didn't study the business plan. We didn't bat an eye when he said he's moving the business from Dallas to Memphis. I don't think Memphis is a great place for an organic vegetarian pita place. And then, it was not run well, and we lost. And that's okay, right? You're not going to bat 1,000. It's just not going to happen.
So what do you do with that? Is it a sunk cost? Do you just move on? Do you beat yourself up over it?
You can't beat yourself up over it. I mean, you take learnings from it, right? It's just, I can diagnose exactly why I made that bad decision. It was emotional. It was out of obligation. It wasn't out of belief in what the guy's building. I mean, I don't eat vegetarian pitas, right? And Will and I joked about that. It was like, what are we doing? I mean, we have absolutely we would never go eat here, right? And so it was purely emotional and out of obligation. And so I think
you're missing the passion.
Yes. if you don't believe in it, then don't invest in it, I mean, and we didn't believe in it. We thought maybe he'd make it successful, but we didn't understand the product. We didn't understand why he was doing it. And we certainly didn't know him the way we thought we did after we saw what happened when the business started to go sideways. But I think when people start to see that a business is failing, they make bad decisions. And that's what happened. And so now I own 9% of a chicken restaurant in Memphis that I think is still in business, so.
So let's say you're John Smith and you're an expert in whatever, underwater basket weaving, or you're an expert in playing video games, or you're an expert in, in trading cryptocurrency, but you don't really have any money. You have this passion. What's the guy's name, the fisherman guy? What's your
Dylan.
guy's? Dylan.
Well, Dylan and Greg and Tanner, but Dylan was the guy I met with first.
Dylan's the main guy. So how does, let's say Dylan had this epiphany. Let's say he's listening to this podcast, his epiphany, and how does he find someone to believe in him? I mean, is it divine intervention the only possibility, or is there a way to make this happen in the world? Like, how would he convince you? You probably convinced him, but how would you, if you flip the tables around, how could someone convince you? I'm not telling you people to freaking call Sean. Don't call Sean. But I'm saying in the world, how would you, how do you find this balance of a good partner that's going to come in and tell you what to do, but, maybe hopefully provide you some coaching, some business sense, and maybe some financing and some resources to help you get there from your dead end or something you aren't as passionate about?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's easy to filter through people who are going to be somewhat, or who are going to be successful and going off and doing their own thing. And that is, I mean, there's, like I said, people have passion and knowledge about lots of different things, but if there's a pattern of 25 years of you saying for 25 years, I think I could go do it, but I'm not going to, and I'm super comfortable with the, the paycheck I get every month. I think it's a lot harder to break out of that versus, hey, I've tried some things and I've failed, so I had to go back and do this. And so I think, when I'm looking at this, I look for a pattern of at least someone who's willing to do things a little different and go out and try to do, at least try to start bits and pieces of this, whether that's you went out and started a local bass fishing group, right? Because you wanted to share knowledge. And that led to this Facebook group where you have 1,000 people, and look at how many people are sharing this information now. And so you put yourself out there and you've tried to create community around you, because I think, if we talk about what you've done with Obsessed Garage, what we're doing at Talk and Tackle, and what many people do, the only reason that people buy from you is because they trust you, right? They know who you are. They know you're brutally honest. Sometimes maybe a little too honest. You're brutally honest. Your videos are entertaining, but behind it all, they know that this is what you wanted to do your entire life, right? And so you can see the parallels to this conversation with Dylan. And then, Dylan said, well, you got to meet my buddies, Greg and Tanner, who I want to do this with. And you see that passion, and you look at the fact that he's, he quit his job and moved to Chattanooga to become a fishing guide, right? And so, and it's been good for him, but this is going to be even better for him.
So what I'm hearing, the requisite would be, forget the I'm working at the deli at the local grocery store, and I've got this idea. You need to have some substance, right? Like you said, things that were raising red flags for me. Like you started a Facebook group and you had some people that were engaged and following. You don't necessarily have to quit your job, but you're doing it on the side. You're doing it. You're side hustling. You're doing something to pursue it, to chase it, and then someone like a Sean may be able to see that and then invest in it or in you.
Yeah, I mean, I think building community around something you're passionate about, right, is the easiest thing in the world to do right now, right? With as many ways as you can reach people who have similar interests, right? And from there, you can show that you worked this hard, and those are the types of things that are going to build the foundation for building that credibility that you have to have in order to run a business like this, right? I mean, why would someone buy a $20 crankbait from Talk and Tackle instead of going to Tackle Warehouse online? Well, there's one reason, and it's the same reason people buy from Obsessed Garage, right? It's that they appreciate the amount of hustle that's gone into it. You've made it readily apparent how hard you work to arrive at this being the product you want to sell, and they support that, right? And not everyone is going to support that, but
Right.
a lot of people do. And so, to the extent that we're talking about starting these businesses that have this kind of OG mentality to them, doing things to show how much you know about this stuff. I mean, think about how you started, right? You started by with 3 houses ago with that, filming in your garage.
Right.
And that was long before you started OG, but it would be easy for someone to, and I remember when you started your store, right? And then it got bigger and bigger, and then you left the financial services industry. But it was long before what you have now. Someone could have detected that, gosh, look how hard this guy's working, and look what he's doing to build community and build passion and collect a group of people who share his interests. It would be, I wonder if we could build a business that does, whether it's Obsessed Garage or something car related, there's a demonstration of passion and grit and willingness to take risks that I think you have to show in order for people to take you seriously.
Yeah, I tried this and failed once in identifying a person who with CrossFit dialed in, and I thought I could do the same formula. I thought I could do, just find somebody who really wants to do it. The part that I was missing with him was that he wasn't actually doing it. Like he didn't have even the start of a community. I thought I could teach him how to do the community part. I thought I could teach him, he had the passion for CrossFit and working out, but he was missing a major component. And that was some demonstrated, execution, whether it was side hustling, it was training people on the side, or it was, engaging with certain part of the community or something. There was no, he didn't have any of that background. And so what I thought I could do, I could front the money. I could buy the facility, put all the equipment in there, give them a list of clients that we already had, that I bought, and so I just thought I could buy my way into creating. And the only reason I wanted to do it was so that I could go to it, right? And I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, we might as well make it successful. We could have a clothing line. We could have we could do all kinds of cool stuff. And the way to do that would be to take great photos, write good descriptions, engage with the community, really contribute to people. And it failed miserably because I think we were missing a component, some demonstrated ability to do all of those things. And so it crashed and burned largely because I threw money at it and was, missing some of these components of having some picking someone who I identified, like you did, like you identified someone who was already on that path. They were already there. They were already headed in that direction. And you just came in and kind of guided and coached. And I'm assuming part of the reason why you're doing this is because you wanted to exist. Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh yeah, it's awesome. 2 miles from my house, I can go get whatever I need. Right. And, but yes, it's very different. And I think exceedingly rare to find someone who's been in the same job for 25 years that is finally going to break out and just be wildly successful in a high risk entrepreneurial endeavor. But I think if people are shaping their career path and they're wondering what to do, the danger is getting pigeonholed into doing something for too long, right? And just getting sucked into the comfort of knowing where your paycheck's going to come from next month, right? As opposed to pursuing some of these passions on the outside. I mean, think about, take an example, mountain biking. You can go out and start a mountain biking group. You can go maintain the trails. You can, and because you want to someday own your own bike store, right? And for almost everything that you're passionate about, you could find things that you could go do that would just build your credibility with people and show that you have that desire and that willingness to go out and just and put yourself out there and try to do things to build community and trust, which is what essentially you need and what you have on massive scale because of how hard you worked with OG.
Yeah, it doesn't. I've said this many times. It doesn't feel like work. I'm just doing me. I'm doing exactly what I want to do at, pretty much all day, every day, with the exception of, some things you've got to do that I would rather not, in order to get the result. Like for instance, I say this all the time. I freaking hate detailing, but I love the result. And I know what I got to do in order to get the paint to look the way I want it to look. And that's going to take hours and hours of pain and suffering of things that I really don't want to do. But then when you run your hand across the back of the paint after you're done, it's like, well, yeah, that was all worth it. And so it's the same thing in business, same thing in fitness, same thing in sports, same thing in everything, anything that you're going to have some success. And I think it's based on you doing things that maybe you don't want to do, but if you're either addicted to the result or if it's at least related to what you're passionate about, it won't feel like work. It won't feel like effort. It'll feel natural and you'll do a lot more of it. And that's why even if you're not cut out, because most people aren't cut out to be an entrepreneur, most people are cut out to be, to work in a more stable environment. Even if you're not cut out to do your own business, you could very easily carve out. I mean, think about it. If you have somebody that was working for you that was carving out their own path that was benefiting the vision that you had for the great organization, you would add fuel to that fire as much as possible, right? And so maybe that person wasn't cut out to be the owner. They're not interested in getting their K-1s to their accountant and worrying about where cash is going to come for the next payroll and what's the next building we're going to go into. And, how do we make sure that our bathrooms ADA compliant and all this nonsense that a business owner has to do? Most people aren't cut out to do that kind of pressure and the risk taking that is involved in that. But I think that there is a if you can still have that passionate mentality and you can find a place to work where you can apply this same principle of chase the passion in I'm telling you, almost every outside of like Amazon or a major corporation, most companies they're gonna see that and they're gonna love that. They're gonna, as long as you're not wildcatting, you're trying to make vegetarian pitas when it's a steakhouse, right? But if it's related and it's in the greater vision of the organization, this is what I tell my guys all the time. Like, I want you guys to chase what you're best at, what you enjoy doing the most, and we'll figure out how that fits into the vision rather than you just doing a job because you feel like you have to. And that I think for me will benefit me much more because most of these guys aren't, they don't want to be on, they don't want the risk. They don't want to, the entrepreneur side of things. They don't want to deal with that. It's a lonely place.
One of the things, I think more people are cut out to be entrepreneurs than we are actually led to believe. I think that unfortunately, people are just assume that you're going to go to high school and then you're going to go to college. And after you go to college, you're going to get a job. Right. And then what happens is people say you kind of follow that path and ignore the fact that they should be doing something far more interesting. And so they end up, working somewhere. And if I think about how I started my career, I spent 5 years building credit scores at the credit bureau. And I was, it was interesting for about 6 months. And then at 24, I was like, getting burned out and uninterested. And that's when I realized it was time to make a change. And I knew that the world of analytics was coming. And so I either had to have, as we talked about building community and trust and all that, I either had to have done that or I had to just step off the ledge, believe in myself, and just go do it myself until people see that what we're building is actually going to work. Right. And that was the way we had to go. Dog's about to bark. That was what I had to do because I was just tired of working for someone and building these terribly boring models that are the same every single day. And so it was chasing passion, right? But I think people just get pigeonholed and they don't get into the concept of life hacking, and meaning, you're just not doing what norm is, what people expect you to do. And it's, it's hard for people to accept that they're going to, they're going to go home and tell their parents at 23 that, they don't want to go work for a giant company. They're going to start their own thing, because that's just not normal. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it scares people, and it's the unsafe path, but it sure as hell is fun, and
can be. Yeah. Yeah.
well,
if it works, it's great.
Well, I mean, the anxiety and the stress and the sleepless nights as you start to bring things to life, there's nothing better than that, and what I think is really sad is that there are so many people out there that could experience that have everything they need in their brain to do that, and they never will, right? Because they're just not willing to take that risk, and they're not willing to find ways and find avenues to go do what they're actually passionate about, and so they're stuck doing accounting for a giant company for 50 years, and it's sad.
So you went to high school and did undergrad. You have a master's, don't you?
Yeah, I got a master's in statistics.
So when were you like and your parents were academics, right?
Yeah, my dad's got a PhD in theoretical physics, and my mom has a PhD in physiology. So I'm actually the underachiever in the family.
Right. So how much pushing did they do, for grades throughout, the high school and college?
So in terms of, and this is a great example of what I was just talking about, I was a horrible student. I mean, horrible.
Same here,
in high school. I think my GPA my first semester of college was a 1.56. I just had no idea what I wanted to do, and so I eventually figured out, some of the things that were interesting, and I knew I wanted to go to grad school more than anything, just to kick the can down the road a little bit. But I was never a great student, and I always did things a little bit differently, and my parents always kind of looked at me like, what the hell are you doing, versus my brothers who did things.
Was it not a great student out of lack of caring, or were you stupid?
I hated school. I had no interest in going and listening to someone tell me exactly how to do something, right? So I was on academic probation in high school, and I mean, it goes on and on. And, I tell my kids that for whatever reason, I think it's probably my wife. Our kids are great students, right? And I've told them that I was not. I mean, it was until my senior year in college. And it was funny. When I was playing, I was really good at basketball, and the coach at Harvard told me, if you get an 1100 on your SAT, you can come to Harvard. I don't care about anything else. Well, I got like a 1210 or something, and but I didn't go to Harvard, thank God. But the only reason I got into college in the first place was because I was playing basketball. They wanted me to, that's why they wanted me, right? So I was fortunate, but I was a terrible student. But I think that's reflective of a lot of entrepreneurs. There's a lot of highly successful entrepreneurs are dropouts. They gave up in high school because they don't want to sit there and listen to the same crap, and a professor drone on about something. That's just not how they learn. I think you probably learn like I do, and that is just getting out there and going and doing it and having grit and, trying things and failing, and then trying things and succeeding. And that's, and so, I think people get discouraged because their grades suck. In many ways, I look at that as a good sign.
So you took the traditional path.
Yeah.
Because that's the path, right? That's what you do. You go to college, and you get the degree, and you go and you take the corporate job, and then you work your way up. Yeah. So what we now know that's nonsense. So what do you tell your kids now? Like, what do you tell them?
That's a tough one, man. Especially I got Parker, who's, we've got him going to college a year and a half from now, I guess. And it's like, half of me is like, want to ask him, do you even want to go to college? Or do you have some things you want to go pursue and chase that you're really interested in? Because, one of my best friend in the world, Bobby, who I've been friends with for 32 years, he said, like, a long time ago, he said, the university system it's just a giant hoax, right? It's the bubble's going to burst. And, you have these poor parents that are paying tens of thousands of dollars because they think they've got to send their kids to this elite university so that they have the opportunities in life that look, in the United States, there are so many opportunities that have absolutely nothing to do with your education, that have much more to do with you being willing to just put yourself out there, take risk and grind, that it doesn't really matter. If you want a college degree, I mean, it can be important in certain ways, but the system, the university system has been built to just put this unbelievable importance on it, and it's going to come crashing down at some point because people just simply can't afford it. Hundreds of thousands of dollars for education. If I look back on what I learned in college and grad school, I never used any of it.
Right. Same here. Yeah. All these guys make fun of me because I have an electrical engineering degree, and like I'm talking about current or I don't freaking know. I didn't pay attention at all. For me, college was life-changing. I grew up there. I
Yes.
would do it a million times over, but forget the academics. I didn't learn squat.
1,000% agree.
I learned how to solve problems. I learned how to, where are you going to, learn to solve a problem? Where am I going to live? Especially as you get, upper class, you have to figure out, am I going to live on campus? Am I going to live off campus? Where am I going to eat? How am I going to do laundry? How am I going to navigate living, next to other people and being uncomfortable or comfortable in certain situations? Am I going to go to class? And I was so fortunate that I had this insatiable passion pursuit in all things. And so I had to be there in order to get to wherever I wanted to get to. But I was passionate about volleyball, and I was passionate about selling home theater. And the result of selling home theater is I made money, which I could buy more home theater and car stuff. And man, if I could go back and do it all over again, I would have taken college and not worried so much about choosing the hardest major, and I would chosen something easier, maybe some bullcrap thing like entrepreneurship or something. And I would have relaxed on the idea that I'm going to run up some debt that I'm easily going to pay off in the future. And so when I think about this, I think about my kids. I'm like, I feel like they can go there. So I always had this underlying pressure. Like, I need to be here. I need to get this done. But yet I would just procrastinate on that traditional pressure path I'm going to get terrible grades. I don't care. And I'm going to, I'm going to sell home theater instead of going to class, or I'm going to go, focus my entire existence on working out and playing volleyball when I should be going to class. But I felt like I should be going to class. If I would have just gone into it knowing, hey, I got to get enough to pass, but I'm going to use this opportunity to find my passion. Man, I could have done so much more with it, and I would have been so much further ahead in the future. So that's what's so so interesting to me when I see like our friend Adam LZ, who he was in college. He went to college and he basically paid for it himself, and he was an entrepreneur from the start. Selling shirts out of his dorm room, employing all his roommates. Like, just incredible story of how he was able to kind of chase that thing right from the start, from the time he was 15, 16 years old all the way in. And I wish that we I could have done that, from the beginning. So I wish that for my kids, that they can go to college if they want, or not if they don't. Michelle, there's no not with Michelle, but with me, it's like you get the grades that you get, and it's up to you, and chase that as hard as you want to chase it. And I'll help you if you need help. But to put that pressure, like you've got to get a 3.6 or else I'm not paying for it. That kind of, because if you don't get 3.6 GPA, you're not going to get a job for McKinsey and have a horrible, miserable, boring life. It's like, I'm not exactly sure how to navigate that, but it's coming up on us quick. And I mean, I guess it's their life. And so I'm just here to help facilitate.
Yeah, it's a tough one, man. But I totally agree with what you're saying. That is that, at college, it's, I think when you hear about people who are living at home and going to college and, and just for the classes, they're missing 95% of what college
just skip that. Skip that whole thing. Take that money and go get an apartment somewhere and figure out a trade or something.
I totally agree. And so, I figured out a lot about who I was and what I wanted to do, and kind of one of the things that's made me tick at college, but my grades were not reflective of any of that. And I was a massive disappointment, to my family, just in terms of the fact that I was struggling just to get through college. And I started to do well and then good enough to get into Tennessee, but probably because my parents were professors there. And so, I just kind of figured it out. But man, there is just this pressure on kids, and it goes all the way now. And Chelsea and I talk about this all the time. The kids in the 8th grade are doing math that I was doing in my junior year, and there's just kids are getting pushed harder and harder. And it doesn't matter. Does it really matter if your 8th grader is doing junior level math? No, it doesn't. But all the other parents say their kids are, right? And so you need to do that too. And that is that kind of societal pressure to just follow the straight and narrow and the path that society has laid out for you that most people should just not pay attention to. But
I always thought it was that way for parents that couldn't, right? That they need to get a scholarship. Their kid, needs to get as good of grades. I thought those are the ones that push. It makes no sense to me if you have a couple of parents that can, fund college without much issue. I'd always assumed that pressure was because, of the finances, the cost of it, and the investment in it. But I'm learning that's not the case. I know plenty of people that have plenty of resources that are still dry. Maybe it's the competitive side of things, but I just enjoy seeing my kids do whatever they're going to do. If they excel at something, great. If they don't, that's fine too. And if they want to go to college, I'll pay for it. Or we'll figure out a way to maybe have them have some skin in the game, so it's not a complete waste. But to take that pressure off of them that you got to go get a 3.6 GPA at the best school you can get into with the most scholarships you can get, it seems stupid. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
You are damning yourself to a life of living normal, just the average life that society expects you to, if those are the things you're focused on.
But it's funny that the point of doing all of that is so that you don't have to, you're being told that that's how you get to live the great, perfect life, which it's the opposite, right? It's when you do, in most cases, if you do the opposite, then you're going to be, usually more successful, happier, all that stuff. Now, there are certain people, I'm sure you've met some along the way that are just gifted, and that's their passion. Their passion is getting 100 on everything. Their passion. I remember this one kid on my volleyball team, Richard Lease. I was just thinking about him the other day. He was memorizing the dictionary. We're taking the bus, and I'd ask him, I'd be like, give me that thing. And I'd ask him a word, and he would know how to spell it. He would know how to define it. It was incredible. He's just literally memorizing Webster's dictionary just because I don't think he felt any pressure. He was just gifted with that ability. And so he was a genius, and he was just gifted that way. But I think most people are going to be best served finding that sort of happy medium. And the cool thing about the internet today is that we can learn stuff, pretty insanely quickly. And the thing that I'm really shocked personally is when I was younger, if I knew that I was going to own a business, I'm hired a bunch of people without college degrees, I would have said, no freaking way. These people are lazy losers. And what I found is that most people that haven't pursued that are the best. They're the best and brightest a lot of times because they're not stuck in a box.
That's what I know. It's and when we were running our analytics company, of course we had to make sure that people had highly technical brains because they're going to be doing some super advanced math. But we always had great success finding them from schools where other people just ignored it, right? Because, they're at Kennesaw State, they can't be that good, right? And we, there are just gems in there that just are excited to be, that have opportunity. And so we would find them in these crazy places. And some of our best employees, we never hired for Stanford or Yale because you're competing with Amazon and Google and just to go back to what you're expected to do. That's what makes your parents proud, right? You call home and say you got a job at Google. Well, it's just, especially as we look at the generation prior to us, all this stuff was crazy, right? That you're going to quit your financial services job and you're going to sell car detailing stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, good luck with that. So, but I mean, the internet has enabled all this stuff to come to life for so many people. I mean, I think if you go back to the tackle shop, it's wildly successful because it's starting to have a pretty big social media following. And it would have been very difficult without the internet to do the things that you and I do on a daily basis. Right?
Oh yeah. I mean, it would be impossible. I mean, there's probably like 2.5 people in this town that would know anything about what I'm interested in, so I'd be screwed,
Yeah.
I'd have to try to sell like Armor All or something that anybody knew anything about. To all these old geezers here in this town. It'd be horrible. And then it'd be just like selling financial advice to people that I'm not, don't have any interest in, that we have different interests. So, lacks the passion. It's just a lot harder than what I'm doing now, which is to be able to reach everybody in the world by making a video. And I get this all the time. Two things. One is, you've really got to tap into the villages. This is such a good market. Or you've got to go to this or that trade show. And I think about it. I'm like, if I want to go to the biggest trade show, or let's say I go to Corvettes of Carlisle, and there's 10,000 people there, and I'm going to come across like 1,800, because they're going to put you in a corner booth somewhere, and you're going to meet, you're going to see 1,800 people, because the other 8,000 are going to walk right past your booth. They're not going to care. And so then you're going to be there for like a week. You got to buy a truck. You got to buy a trailer. You got to hire all these people. You got to lug all your crap there. You're going to sweat your balls off in the summer. You got to wear sunscreen, all this crap to meet 1,800 people. Yes, a trade show or a car event or something like that can gather a number of people. Or I can make a video and 38,000 people that want to watch it will watch it.
Right.
And as long as I provide them an avenue to buy something, I can monetize it. I can create a revenue stream around that. And it's just so funny. I don't know how I got on this sidetrack, but there was like, you just need to tap into the villages. I'm like, why don't I'm just tapping into the freaking universe, the world. What do I want to just tap into the villages for? It's nuts.
Yeah, it is. It is the amount of opportunity that is created by all this. It's endless, and it's just a matter of chasing things you're passionate about. And as we've talked about, through this podcast, I mean, it's just finding the opportunity, building community, building credibility, showing that this is really what you want to go do. And then eventually either doing it yourself, just figuring out a way to take that leap with the few $1,000 you have saved and a belief that it's going to work, or finding the person who sees what you saw, right? It sees that, because of the things you've been doing on the side hustles, the community, all that stuff, that you can find someone who really is in it just to make your dreams come true. And there are people like that out there. It just, you have to you make your own luck. You got to be in the right place at the right time. But that, if you're going to work 9 to 5 every day and not doing anything else, chances are you're not going to meet that person,
I argue, let's say you're an entrepreneur at heart and you're young in the game, or you're old in the game, you don't have a lot of savings, you don't have a lot of backing. I would argue you could find a job that you really like doing, and then you can side hustle your way into making, making the job an inconvenience to your side hustle, that you don't have to work at McDonald's just because. You can always find something that you really don't mind doing, as long as you don't accept the traditional path, or you don't accept what your plight, if you will, and you look for opportunity. Sometimes you got to sell yourself a little bit too in order to get the job that you want to have. And a lot of times that job would pay less than what you're probably worth in the beginning. And so you work for free-ish, or for less. And that's what the experience I've had with a lot of guys here. Hire people that I'm not sure are going to pan out, and pay them a lot less than maybe they're qualified for. And then hopefully long-term, they'll make way more than they ever would have because they found their spot. And, I've had pretty good success doing that. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, I called you about the other night, was relevance. We're in our 40s, and the tendency is to, you have the same hair. We're kind of stuck with a haircut, but you have the same haircut. You have the same, the same restaurants you go to. You watch the same TV program. I'm calling it a program. You watch the same stuff. You stream the same stuff. You go on vacation to the same spot. You get dug in, right? and I think that I get this experience of you, and this is what I'm always chasing. It's not really to stay like the goal is not to stay relevant. The goal is because I have a genuine interest. But one of my fears is turning into that dumb old man that doesn't know anything, that doesn't know how to use GPS on his cell phone because he didn't take the time to stay relevant. And so, what is your take on things like I can feel it, like metaverse, NFT, cryptocurrency, and then of course we're now in the middle of the social media relevance, right? We just talked about that, how the talk and tackle can become a business because of something that didn't exist 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago. Now it just seems common, right, to be an influencer or to make YouTube videos and reach 38,000 people and on a really niche subcultured thing is kind of easy to do and now seems normal. What's the next normal, and how much importance do you put on staying relevant to make it feel so you don't end up in a rut for the rest of your life?
Yeah, it's funny. You called me the other night, and the first thing we talked about was NFTs and crypto, and for whatever reason, people have this belief that I should know that, right? That I should. Oh well, he's got a master's in stats and he's got an analytical brain. Surely he's in NFT and crypto, and it's actually really disappointing for me to be able to tell people, because they have that expectation that really I don't know that much about it. I mean, I understand blockchain, but
I actually had the opposite. I didn't expect you to know anything about it, but I knew that we could have a conversation about it on the same. Yeah. I don't know. I just thought I was sitting there watching Gary Vee talk about NFTs, and I'm like, this seems so freaking stupid to me. It seems like the dumbest thing ever. But something my gut tells me that the world is changing. There's a culture shift. And I was like, well, Shawn and I, I'm sure can have a conversation about this. And, I get these cockamamie schemes in my head, and I'm like, who else knows cockamamie schemes like I do? Well, Shawn does. And so, but do you have any angst or have any desire around relevance in your life? Is that part of what drives you?
Well, I mean, it's absolutely terrifying to, my identity has always been, I'm the tech guy and I know how all this stuff works. And I know how to, I used to put my own computers together and that kind of crap, right? Well, none of that matters anymore, right? Golly, the other day, my daughter was like, hey, Dad, that's how all you have to do to fix that on your iPhone is blah, 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 right? And she fixes it. And it's just this epiphany where like, holy crap, if I don't stay focused on this stuff, and if I really don't try to, we got construction workers here. I'm gonna have to go close this door. Hang on one second. Sorry, that's my interruption. So yeah, I mean, it's absolutely terrifying, right? To not be the one that understands this stuff the way people expect you to, but I think what you have or what we have is we have experience, right? And we saw where all this stuff came from. And a kid today is not going to have any concept of the first time they got on the internet, right? When they grew up, well, the internet was the internet. There was Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff was kind of part of society. And so we have the strength of understanding where this stuff came from. And I think it helps us identify what's probably going to work and what's probably not, right? And so I think whereas people are focusing on, so many different things, the reason that you're interested in NFT and crypto, for example, is because you probably know that from your experience, well, this thing probably is actually going to take off, right? This thing is, there is something here. And so I think that, that's the part that the younger people don't have yet. Now they'll have it in 20 years, right? But utilizing your experience to identify those new opportunities is probably something that is a competitive advantage, right?
I think that maybe this isn't correct, but I think the I think the key is that I don't have interest in early adopting anything. Right. And maybe that's where the experience part comes in, is that, early adopting. There's one video where I'm teaching Adam LZ how to wash his car. And he says, "What do you think about crypto?" And I said, "I don't think about crypto," because he's thinking about it as an investment, right? This is a, how can I make, because that's what the people are taught to do. This is how I could get rich. And certainly many people have gotten rich doing that. But the get rich quick, or, attempting to guess that thing in the beginning, is not, I don't think what we're talking about here. It's more of, is there a change in the world, and do I get left to do me or the business, or does our generation get left behind by being stubborn? The only reason I bought a Tesla is I just thought it was interesting. I knew it was going to be wonky, and the paint was going to be kind of junk, and the panel gaps are going to be a little odd. And so it surprisingly didn't bother me at all, because I was expecting that. And so I bought it for just to try it. What's it like? I finally got my Tesla solar thing set up. What's it like? I went on Coinbase. I was telling you the other night, and I almost bought on regular Coinbase and paid 12% fees or something stupid like that. And then I discovered, well, there's Coinbase Pro, and then there's 57 other better ways to buy it, I'm sure, if you were really into it. And so I'm thinking of it as a longer term, as sort of business relevancy as a human, not as, man, if I buy it at 38,000 and sell it at 600,000, then I'm going to get rich. It's more of, how is this? I'm thinking more longer term. What's the longer term idea behind, if you or at least open to the adoption of where the world seems to be heading? Like, for instance, maybe the university model is not the way to do it. And I think that this is what entrepreneurs think, or have a sense for, is where's the puck heading? And can I at least somewhat skate in that direction to meet it, where it ends up? I'm not trying to beat it there, but how do I stay, relevant, and be an intelligent, progressive older man, rather than our grandparents, right, that are stuck in 1938.
Yeah, but I think you also have to avoid trying to be the 50-year-old that's trying to be too cool, right?
Yeah,
too hip,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Then that's even just as dangerous. At some point, I think you have to be happy with what you've accomplished, and you have to understand that, dude, there are young kids out there that understand this stuff 1,000 times better than you do, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well,
right?
the magic is now, what we can do about it is I can hire them.
Exactly. That's
Right.
exactly right. And your experience is picking out the people that you can see will be extremely helpful and extremely passionate for your business. But the worst thing you can do as a 45 or 50-year-old man is try to compete with them on knowledge, right? With crypto, it's not going to happen. We're not smart enough, and our brains are they've worked very hard, but and you cannot replace an 18, 20, 21-year-old brain. It's just, and so,
yeah, and again, I think it comes down to, again, not attempting to choose the winner, the put it on red or pick the winning horse. It's not about that. I don't really know how to articulate it. It's about, to me, it's about not being a 70-year-old man and not knowing how to use an iPhone currently, right? There's no reason why, when that guy was 45, 50, 40, 50 years old, why he couldn't have gotten a, Motorola Razor, and then gotten a BlackBerry, and then gotten the first generation iPhone, even at 58, right?
Yeah.
And so there's no reason why. It's one of my ultimate fears, is that I'm some dumb old man still wanting an old 911, a 997 GT3, and the world has left me behind.
Yeah.
That's one of my fears.
Yeah, it's there. Yeah, I think there are certain things that as long as you don't get too comfortable, you can stay relevant at. But there are some things that we as old men just simply will not be able to understand. And I mean, maybe you just have to filter through that stuff and accept the fact that, there's no way I can compete with that 21-year-old on. But the other piece of that is trying to get those kids to recognize the importance of experience, right? And even if you don't have direct experience, just experience in business and experience seeing how these things go. And as you said earlier, knowing where the puck is heading is a big deal. And I don't think that you can appreciate how big a deal that is until you've actually experienced it yourself. You can't.
Yeah, you got to screw up a bit, and you got to have some wins, some losses, and some scars, and then I think about if you'd have told me even a year before I left or was walked out the door of wealth management that I wasn't going to do that, for the rest of my life, I would have said, you're freaking nuts. I'm just getting started. It's just getting built. And so I'm hoping that I can continue to have that path, and the path toward, progressing. Saying progressive is a bad word these days, but you know what I mean? Like the real world, the real root of progressiveness, progressing in the future, evolving as a human, and whether you're an entrepreneur, you're an employee, you're a whatever, you're somewhere in between, or you're a kid in college trying to figure it out, the progress and being open to progress is super, super important, I think, to continue to maintain passion, whether you're retired or you're, in the middle of it. I think that's the key metric.
Yeah. And it's important to focus on who you surround yourself with, right? I mean, you're going to stay relevant because you've got a whole bunch of young techie types that are, I mean, you're still soaking that stuff in. Right. And I think for me, I felt like I was really getting stagnant before we started Talking Tackle. And just being around that young energy and that young drive and passion. And, if you can just absorb what goes on a day-to-day basis, you're at least going to be far more relevant than you would be hanging out at the country club playing cards. Right. And so I think that, success in business gives you a platform to enable other people to be successful. And if you can hire those and surround yourself with those young people and soak in that passion, and at least try to have a elementary understanding of the way they're doing things and why they're making the choices they are, that is a huge step forward. But, a lot of people retire, and then this just to go back to the kind of what society expects of you. Well, you're going to go play golf every day. You're just going to chill out. And, I mean, there's a million different ways to retire. When people ask me what I do, I have absolutely no answer for it.
Do what I want every day.
Pretty much. Yeah. So,
well,
that's surrounding yourself with young, relevant talent, and having the first of all, the willingness to accept that they're smarter than you. And second, soaking in some of the things that they're doing so that you at least understand where the world's headed, and you can provide guidance based on what you've seen before,
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I think about this often, and it's I feel like I'm in such a weird place because I'm retired, but I'm still on the come up. I'm not financially retired, but I'm retired because I just do what I want to do. To me, the definition of retired is I retire doing things I don't want to do and do things that I do want to do all day long. Yeah. And then I think the experience is what has afforded me the ability to figure out how to generate revenue, generate profitability from, or create a business, which is really what we're talking about here. Create a business around that, doing what you want to do all day, and I think that's the magic formula. And then if you can stay relevant, you can continue to maintain that business, not run the business into the ground or run it into a dead end. You can continue to evolve and grow the thing if you stay relevant and understand where the puck is heading. And then being okay with the risk comes in, is being okay with being wrong.
Well, and accepting the fact that there are just certain things you're not going to understand. I have absolutely no confidence that even if I applied myself to it in 6 months, that I could be as educated as or be an expert on crypto these days, right? Because I don't understand some of the technology that goes on in it. And I just think that the young mind is not jaded by the way that we've done banking for hundreds of years, right? And so, they're not. They don't have a standard. They've grown up around this stuff, and it's been interesting. And the blockchain technology and the databases and the mining and the computers that are required for it. That's all stuff that they kind of get. And so I think you can understand it, but it would be very hard for a 45-year-old guy to say, you know what, I'm going to become an expert in crypto.
Yeah, I have zero interest in it too. I'm interested in how does it apply? What is it used for? What can we then? How can we benefit? How can we build a business around where this thing's heading? And there requires a at least a surface level understanding to check that relevance box. And then I think if you can do that, you can end up being a pretty cool grandpa, someday. Right? You can
as long as you try not to be too cool. That's what I'm always,
Right. Yeah. Right. But you get some razzle jeans and some leather wristbands and crap like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about cool means you've got a I guess in the future you've got some a crypto wallet on your phone, and you're driving a cool modern car, and have nice modern house, and you don't have like you don't have some cherry cabinets with blue melamine countertops, and you're stuck in 82, right? you want to evolve and continue to improve.
Yeah, but I think good leaders understand that they can learn so much from the new and young talent, because they just have an innocent view of the world, that they haven't been in business for 30 years. And so you have to accept that, man, some of the ideas that are going to come out of these people may sound a little crazy, but there's so much good in a young mind that, that hasn't been jaded by this, what we've been talking about, the kind of the standard that society just expects of you. And so, and I love that about, some of the boards I'm on and advisory, situations I'm in, is being able to hear how these guys are thinking, and just seeing the birth of some of these ideas, because they're just so passionate and they have so much energy. And, it's important to accept the fact that you can learn a whole hell of a lot from someone who has absolutely no experience,
Yeah, and I feel like I'm rounding into having the ability to not want to compete with that. I'm sure you could relate. In the beginning of your business, you hire people, and then there's a bit of competitiveness to it. You hire somebody who's better, smarter than you, and when you're probably in your late 20s, early 30s. The maturity. It takes a while for that, the male testosterone, that competitiveness to sort of subside and allow you to see the opportunity in having the leverage provided by somebody who knows more, instead of who's better, who's going to get the win, and I think that the true sense, or the true leader is one that never wins, doesn't have to win. In individual instances, you win in the greater, the greater organization, the greater good. But there's no perception that you're taking the win from the young talent. That's been something I've had to learn the hard way over the course of this, these 10 or 12 years of me actually leading in some form or fashion, that a leader doesn't necessarily jump in and dig the ditch the fastest and win every time. A leader doesn't even dig the ditch. The leader, sort of teaches and coaches and rewards and thanks those that are digging the ditch. And then the byproduct is the whole team gets to win from that. And that takes maturity in order for that to be a thing. I think for, some people are blessed with it and born with it, but I certainly was not, born with that ability to, hey, maybe I shouldn't be digging the ditch the fastest because it makes everybody else feel bad. Then I win. Yeah. What's the point?
Yeah.
Well, cool. I've taken up enough of your time. I enjoy these conversations. I'm sure some young people will watch this, and hopefully some guys that are stuck in a dead end spot, and maybe 3 women might watch this in the world because they're sort of eavesdropping on their husband looking to go to sleep. But we should do this more often.
Sure.
There's such a like-mindedness, and I always enjoy picking your brain on topics like this, on like relevance, and I'm always modeling. I'm always thinking, what happens someday if somebody comes here and offers me X sum of money to walk away? Could I handle it like Shawn has handled it? How would I navigate that? I don't know if I would accept it because I'm doing the thing that I want to do. But what would that, what would it be like if I did, if I walked away and sold the business?
I think what you'd learn is, it's impossible to shut it off, and that some other business would be born, or you'd be miserable, one or the other,
Mm-hmm.
So, if you shut it off, your brain atrophies and you end up playing cards at the country club. So,
yeah,
not good.
And you're driving a '96 Supra forever because that was the best car, and you're stuck with it. Yeah. I don't want to do that. Yeah. All right, my friend. Well, appreciate your time, and thanks everybody for watching. And we'll catch you on the next one. Maybe we'll do more interviews occasionally. We'll see if you guys like it.
All right. See you.